Admiral Jake Morrison stood at the center of the massive council chamber, feeling very small. The room stretched high above him, with seats arranged in circles that went up and up until they disappeared into shadows. Hundreds of alien beings stared down at him, their eyes glowing in colors he had never seen before. He tried to keep his face calm, but inside his heart was beating fast. This was the moment Earth had been waiting for. 3 long years of talks, meetings, and careful planning had led to this day. Today, humanity would ask to join the Galactic Federation. The chamber buzzed with strange sounds. Some aliens clicked and whistled. Others made low humming noises. A few spoken voices that sounded like music. Jake could not understand most of it, but his translator earpiece was working hard to keep up. "Silence!" called a voice that boomed through the room. The sound came from the High Council platform, where the most powerful alien leaders sat. "We will now hear from the human delegation." Jake stepped forward. His boots made small clicking sounds on the smooth floor. Behind him walked Commander Lisa Hayes, carrying a silver case that held Earth's most important documents. She looked calm and professional in her dark blue uniform, but Jake knew she was nervous too. "Honored members of the Galactic Federation," Jake began, his voice echoing in the huge space. "I am Admiral Jake Morrison, speaking for the planet Earth and all humanity. We come before you today with respect and hope." A sound like laughter rippled through the chamber. It was not friendly laughter. Jake felt his stomach tighten, but he continued speaking. "For 3 years we have learned about your great civilization. We have seen how different species work together for peace and progress. Earth wishes to join this noble cause." More laughter. Louder this time. Jake saw some aliens nudging each other with what looked like amusement. A tall creature with crystal skin was actually pointing at him and making a sound like breaking glass. The Zephyrian ambassador stood up. His body was made of what looked like living crystal, and light danced inside him as he moved. When he spoke, his voice rang like a bell. "Tell us, little human," Vextar said, and Jake could hear the mockery in his words. "What exactly can your species offer the Federation? What great military might do you bring to our alliance?" Jake took a deep breath. This was the moment he had been dreading. "Commander Hayes will present our fleet capabilities." Lisa stepped forward and opened her silver case. She pulled out a datapad and began reading from it. Earth's space fleet currently consists of 12 operational starships. These include 6 frigates, 4 destroyers, and 2 command vessels. The chamber exploded with noise. Aliens were chittering, hissing, and making sounds that might have been laughter. Some were slapping what might have been knees with appendages. That might have been hands. A massive reptilian creature rose from his seat. His scales were dark green and covered with old scars. This was War Chief Scare of the Korthek hegemony, and his yellow eyes burned with amusement. 12 ships? Scar's voice was like gravel grinding together. Did the human say 12 ships? "My personal guard has more vessels than that." The laughter grew louder. Jake felt his face getting hot, but he forced himself to stay still. "Furthermore," Lisa continued, trying to speak over the noise, "our ships use chemical propulsion systems and kinetic weapons technology." This brought even more laughter. The crystal being Vextar was making a sound like wind chimes in a hurricane. "Chemical propulsion. Do you hear this? They still burn fuel like primitives." An elegant creature with flowing robes floated down from the upper seats. This was Ambassador Quindle of the Etherians. Her people were known for being polite, but even she seemed amused. "Honored humans," she said in a voice like soft music, "perhaps you have misunderstood the purpose of the Galactic Federation. We are a military alliance. Our members must be able to contribute meaningful defense capabilities." "Your 12 little ships," interrupted another alien with too many arms, "could not defend a single mining station, let alone a colony world." War Chief Scare stood up again, his massive form casting the shadow over the human delegation. "I have seen your vessels through our long-range scanners. They are barely adequate for moving cargo between your moon and your planet. One of my destroyers could defeat your entire fleet without taking damage." The chamber filled with agreement sounds from dozens of different species. Jake felt like he was shrinking, but he noticed something. His aide, Lieutenant Ben Carter, was standing quietly near the wall. Ben was not looking upset or embarrassed. Instead, he was holding a small recording device and seemed to be taking careful notes. "The Federation has standards," announced a being that looked like a floating jellyfish with too many eyes. "Only species with real military power can join our alliance. You humans are clearly not ready." Vextara's crystal body flashed with bright light. "Perhaps in a few hundred years, when you have learned to build proper starships, you may apply. Again, until then, stick to what you do best." "And what would that be?" Jake asked, though he was not sure he wanted to hear the answer. "Farming," said War Chief Scare with a sound that was definitely laughter. "Your species seems well suited for agricultural work. Leave the fighting to real warriors." The chamber erupted again. Aliens were making sounds of agreement and amusement. Some were pointing at the humans and speaking to their neighbors in languages the translators could not handle. Ambassador Quindle raised a graceful hand for silence. "The Galactic Federation Council formally rejects Earth's application for membership. You may reapply when your military capabilities meet our minimum standards." Jake felt like he had been punched in the stomach, but he kept his expression neutral. "We understand the Council's decision. Thank you for your time." As the human delegation prepared to leave, War Chief Scare called out one final insult. "Tell your people not to feel bad, humans. Building a real fleet takes thousands of years. Your 12 toy boats are a good start for such a young species." The laughter followed them as they walked toward the exit. Jake's boots clicked on the floor, but now the sound seemed louder and more lonely. Lisa walked beside him, her face red with anger and embarrassment. As they reached the door, Lieutenant Ben Carter caught up with them. He was still holding his recording device, and there was something strange in his eyes. Not shame or disappointment, but something that looked almost like satisfaction. "Sir," Ben said quietly as the doors closed behind them, "I got everything. Every word, every insult, every laugh. Command is going to be very interested in this recording." Jake looked at his young aide with surprise. "Ben, we just got rejected and humiliated in front of the entire galaxy. What could possibly be good about that?" Ben smiled, and it was not a nice smile. "Sir, with respect, I think they just made a very big mistake. They told us exactly what they think of our capabilities, exactly how their military works, and exactly how confident they are." As they walked down the long corridor toward their ship, Jake began to understand what Ben meant. The meeting had been humiliating, but it had also been very, very informative. The aliens had revealed more about themselves. In 1 hour than Earth's intelligence services had learned in 3 years, and they had no idea what humanity was really capable of. Admiral Jake Morrison sat in a chair that was built deep underground. The room around him had no windows and thick walls made of steel and concrete. Far above his head, the Rocky Mountains of Colorado stretched toward the sky, but down here everything was hidden from the world. The meeting room was full of people who did not officially exist. Their names were not in any public records. Their jobs were secrets that could change the fate of humanity. Jake looked around the table and saw faces he trusted with his life. Director Helen Park sat at the head of the table. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. For 20 years, she had run the Strategic Defense Initiative, a program that most people on Earth had never heard of. The few who knew about it thought it was just another research project. President Danny Walsh leaned back in his chair, looking tired. He had been in office for 6 years, but he looked like he had aged 20. Running a planet was hard work, especially when most of the planet did not know what was really happening. So, the president said, they laughed at us. Yes, sir. Jake replied, exactly as we expected. War Chief Scare was particularly insulting. He said our entire fleet could be destroyed by one of his ships. Director Park smiled, but it was not a happy smile. Good. The more they underestimate us, the better. Jake looked confused. Helen, we just got rejected by the entire galaxy. How? Is that good? Because now we know exactly what they think of us, said a new voice. Commander Lisa Hayes walked into the room carrying a thick folder. And we know they have no idea what we are really capable of. Lisa had changed out of her dress uniform and now wore the simple gray clothes of someone who worked in classified programs. She looked different somehow, more relaxed and confident than she had in the council chamber. Lisa, the president said, tell us what you learned. Lisa opened her folder and spread papers across the table. The Korthik have 37 ships in their main battle fleet. The Zephyrians have about 60, but most of them are older designs. The Etherians prefer smaller, faster vessels and have maybe 200 ships total. How do we know all this? Jake asked. Because they told us, Lisa said with a grin. When you think someone is harmless, you talk freely around them. For 3 years, I have been attending their meetings, listening to their conversations, and asking innocent questions. Director Park stood up and walked to a wall screen. She pressed a button and the screen showed a star map. Jake, what you saw today was theater, a performance. Earth has been playing a role for the past 50 years. What do you mean? Those 12 ships that the aliens laughed at, they are real. But they are not our fleet. They are our decoys. The screen changed to show pictures of old, slow-looking spacecraft. Jake recognized them as the ships he had seen in Earth's public spaceports. We built those ships to look weak, Helen continued. Chemical engines that smoke and make noise. Simple weapons that anyone can see and understand. Hull designs that look clumsy and primitive. But why? Because while the galaxy was laughing at our 12 old ships, we were busy building our real fleet where no one could see it. The screen changed again. Now it showed the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Thousands of rocks floated in the darkness, looking like natural space debris. Chief Engineer Roy Mitchell, come in here, Helen called, a tall man with oil-stained hands walked into the room. He looked like someone who spent his time fixing machines, not someone who would be in a secret meeting with the president. Roy, Helen said, tell Admiral Morrison about our real space program. Roy grinned and pulled out his own folder. Jake, for the past 50 years, everything the aliens think they know about human space technology has been a lie. Every mining ship they have seen, every cargo vessel, every research station has been part of the biggest construction project in human history. Construction project? We have been building warships out there in the asteroid belt, lots of warships. More than 3,000 of them. Jake felt like someone had hit him with a hammer. 3,000 ships? Destroyers, cruisers, battleships, carriers, and things that do not have names yet because no one has ever built them before, Roy continued. All of them hidden behind fake mining operations and disguised construction sites. The screen showed new pictures now. These were not the clumsy-looking ships the aliens had laughed at. These vessels were sleek and deadly, covered in weapons and armor that looked like nothing Jake had ever seen. The aliens think our biggest ships are those 12 old cargo haulers, Roy said. They have never seen our real warships. Ships like the USS Liberty, commanded by Captain Steve Rogers. She is a dreadnought with enough firepower to level a continent. Or the USS Independence, added another voice. Dr. Amy Foster walked into the room carrying a case full of technical drawings. She was the head of weapons research, and she looked excited. Kate Sullivan's ship carries fighter squadrons that can outrun anything the Federation has. Amy, Helen said, show him the weapons tests. Dr. Foster opened her case and pulled out a tablet computer. The screen showed video of weapons firing in space. Jake watched explosions that turned asteroids into dust and energy beams that cut through solid metal like it was paper. Our kinetic weapons can crack the crust of a planet, Amy said proudly. Our plasma cannons burn hotter than the core of a star. We took apart every piece of alien technology we could find and built something better. Where did you get alien technology? Jake asked. Crashed ships, abandoned equipment, things that fell off cargo vessels, Lisa answered. The galaxy is a messy place. Valuable items get lost all the time. We just happened to find them and study them very carefully. President Walsh leaned forward. Jake, do you understand what this means? While the Federation was laughing at our 12 toy boats, we were building the most powerful fleet in known space, and they have no idea it exists. But how did we keep it secret for 50 years? The same way we keep all our secrets, Helen said. By making sure our enemies see exactly what we want them to see. Every alien spy satellite that looks at Earth sees those 12 old ships. Every intelligence report says humans are weak and primitive. Roy pulled out more pictures. We have shipyards hidden in asteroid fields that look like mining operations. Construction facilities that appear to be research stations. Weapon testing ranges that seem like empty space. And the best part, Dr. Foster added, is that we have been listening to their communications for years. We know their ship designs, their battle tactics, their weapon capabilities, and their fleet positions. Jake felt overwhelmed. Everything he thought he knew about Earth's place in the galaxy was wrong. So when War Chief Scare said his ships could destroy our fleet, he was talking about the wrong fleet, Lisa said with a smile. His 37 ships against our 3,000? That would not be a battle. It would be target practice. Director Park turned off the screen and looked directly at Jake. Admiral, I need you to contact our real fleet commanders. Captain Rogers on the Liberty, Captain Sullivan on the Independence, and Captain Rick Barnes on the stealth destroyer Shadow. What are my orders? Tell them to prepare for Phase 2. The aliens have given us all the intelligence we need. They have shown us their military capabilities, their fleet positions, and most importantly, their complete contempt for human abilities. President Walsh stood up. Gentlemen and ladies, Earth is about to stop pretending to be weak. And when we do, the galaxy is going to learn a very important lesson about underestimating humanity. Helen Park walked over to Jake and put her hand on his shoulder. Admiral, you asked me how getting rejected was good news. Here is your answer. They just told us everything we need to know to defeat them. And they did it while laughing at us. As Jake left the underground meeting room, his mind was spinning with everything he had learned. Earth was not the weak, primitive world the aliens thought it was. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for 50 years, building strength in secret while appearing helpless. The Federation had made a terrible mistake. They had insulted and rejected a species that could destroy them all. And they had no idea what was coming. War Chief Scare stood on the bridge of his flagship and felt very pleased with himself. Through the large windows he could see 36 other Korthak warships flying in perfect formation. Their dark hulls gleamed in the light of distant stars. And their weapons were ready for battle. How much longer until we reach the human system? Scare asked his navigation officer. 2 hours, War Chief, replied the young Korthak, his scales still bright green with youth. The pathetic humans will never see us coming. Scare made a sound like rocks grinding together, which was how his people laughed. 6 months had passed since the humans were rejected by the Galactic Council. 6 months of Scare listening to other species make jokes about the weak little creatures with their 12 toy ships. But Scare was not satisfied with just making jokes. The humans had embarrassed themselves in front of the entire galaxy, and now they needed to learn what happened to species that tried to join the Federation before they were ready. "Send a message to the Korthak High Command," Scare ordered. "Tell them we will have conquered Earth within 1 day. This will show the galaxy that the Korthak hegemony does not tolerate disrespect." His communications officer, an older female, with battle scars on her neck, bowed her head. "Yes, War Chief. Should we also inform the other Federation species?" "Yes, let them watch as we crush these humans. It will be a good lesson for any other primitive species that thinks they can challenge." U.S. The Korthak fleet moved through space like a pack of hunting animals. Their ships were built for war, with thick armor and powerful weapons. Each vessel could destroy a small moon, and together they had conquered dozens of worlds for the hegemony. Scare walked around his bridge, looking at the screens that showed his fleet's progress. Everything was going perfectly. The humans had no idea what was coming, and their pathetic 12 ships would be destroyed before they could even call for help. "War Chief," called his sensor officer, "we are entering the human solar system now." "Excellent. What do our scanners show?" "The same 12 human ships we saw before, War Chief. They appear to be fleeing toward the outer planets." Scar's eyes glowed with satisfaction. "Of course they are fleeing. They know they cannot fight. U.S., follow them and prepare to attack. I want to destroy their ships slowly, so they have time to regret challenging the Korthak." On the bridge of the old human ship UES Defiant, Admiral Jake Morrison watched his screens with careful eyes. The Korthak fleet was following exactly the path his people had predicted. Everything was going according to plan. "Captain Pete Williams," Jake said to his tactical officer, "how long until we reach the rendezvous point?" 15 minutes, Admiral," Pete replied. He was a calm man who had spent years preparing for this moment. "The enemy is following us perfectly." Jake looked around his bridge. The UES Defiant was one of the 12 old ships the aliens had laughed at. Her hull was dented and her engines were loud, but she had served Earth faithfully for many years. Today would be her greatest service. "Signal the other ships," Jake ordered. "Tell them to maintain the illusion. We need to look scared and desperate." The human ships continued their retreat, sending frantic radio messages about evacuation procedures, and calling for help that would never come. To the Korthak, it looked exactly like what they expected to see from a weak, primitive species. War Chief Scare listened to the human radio chatter and felt even more pleased. "Listen to them panic," he told his crew. "They are calling for their mothers and begging their gods to save them. This is what happens to species that do not know their place." The Korthak fleet closed in for the kill as the human ships reached Jupiter's orbit. The giant planet hung in space like a red and orange jewel, its many moons scattered around it like smaller gems. "War Chief," reported the sensor officer, "the human ships are moving behind Jupiter's largest moon. They are trying to hide from." "Oops, pathetic," Scare growled. "Follow them. I want to finish this quickly so we can return home and celebrate our victory." The Korthak ships moved around Jupiter's moon, their weapons charging and their crews ready for battle. Scare could already imagine the stories he would tell about crushing the weak humans, but as his fleet rounded the moon, something was wrong. His sensor officer was staring at his screen with confusion and fear. "War Chief," the officer said, his voice shaking, "I am reading massive energy signatures. There are ships here." "Many ships? What ships?" Scare demanded. "There are only 12. "Human vessels." "No, War Chief. There are hundreds of ships. Maybe thousands. They are ... they are everywhere." Scare looked at his main screen and felt his blood turn to ice. The space around Jupiter was full of human warships. Huge, deadly-looking vessels that were nothing like the old, clumsy ships they had been chasing. These ships were sleek and powerful, covered in weapons and armor that looked more advanced than anything in the Korthak fleet. Impossible, Scare whispered. Where did they come from? The answer came from Admiral Morrison's voice, broadcast on all Korthak frequencies. War Chief. Scare, this is Admiral Jake Morrison of the Terran Defense Fleet. You are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender now and your crews will be spared. Scare looked around him in shock. The human ships had appeared from nowhere, as if they had been invisible. His 37 vessels were completely surrounded by what looked like half of the human. Military. This is a trick, Scare said, but his voice was not as confident as before. Humans do not have ships like these. I am afraid you have been misinformed about our capabilities, Morrison replied. You are looking at the USS Liberty, commanded by Captain Steve Rogers. She mounts more firepower than your entire fleet. To your left is the USS Independence under Captain Kate Sullivan. Her fighter squadrons are already targeting your ships. Scar's sensor officer was reading numbers that did not make sense. War Chief, the energy readings from these human ships are impossible. Their weapons are charging to levels that could destroy our entire fleet. You have 30 seconds to surrender, Morrison continued. After that, we will demonstrate why laughing at Earth was a mistake. War Chief Scare looked at his screens and realized that everything he thought he knew about humans was wrong. These were not primitive creatures with toy boats. These were warriors with weapons that could turn his proud fleet into space dust. But Scare was a Korthak warrior, and Korthak warriors did not surrender. All ships attack, he roared. For the glory of the hegemony. The Korthak fleet opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams and missiles filled space as 37 warships tried to fight their way out of the trap. The human response was immediate and overwhelming. Captain Rogers' USS Liberty fired a single shot from her main gun. The energy beam cut through 3 Korthak ships like they were made of paper. Captain Sullivan's fighters swarmed over the enemy fleet like angry insects, their small but powerful weapons tearing apart armor and shields. War Chief Scare watched his proud fleet die around him. Ships that had conquered worlds were being destroyed. In seconds by weapons he could not understand. His flagship shook as human fire found its target. War Chief, his communications officer called out, "We are losing ships too fast. We cannot fight them." Scare looked at his tactical display and saw the truth. In less than 10 minutes, 20 of his ships were gone. The humans were not just winning, they were playing with his fleet like a cat plays with mice. "Send a message." "To Korthak Command," Scare ordered, his voice now filled with fear instead of pride. "Tell them the humans were not what we thought. Tell them to prepare the home fleet." But before the message could be sent, the USS Liberty fired again. War Chief Scar's flagship exploded in a ball of fire, taking with it the last of the Korthaks. 17 minutes after the battle began, space around Jupiter was quiet again. Where the mighty Korthak fleet had been, there was now only debris and the fading glow of destroyed ships. Admiral Morrison looked at his screens and felt no joy in the victory. This had not been a battle. It had been a demonstration of what happened when someone made the mistake of attacking Earth. "Signal the fleet," he ordered. "Prepare Phase 3. The galaxy is about to learn that humanity is done pretending to be weak." Ambassador Quindle floated through the halls of Kepler Prime Station, her graceful robes moving like water around her. She had called an emergency meeting of the Galactic Council, but she was not sure anyone would believe what she had to report. The meeting chamber was full when she arrived. Representatives from every major species in the Federation had come to hear the news about the Korthak fleet. Most of them looked bored or annoyed. Emergency meetings were common these days, and usually they were about small problems that could wait. Vextar, the Crystal Zephyrian ambassador, was the first to speak. His body flashed with impatient light as he addressed the chamber. "Ambassador Quindle, why have you called us here?" "We have more important matters to discuss than Korthak military exercises." "This is not about exercises," Quindle replied, her musical voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "The Korthik fleet is gone, all of it. 37 ships destroyed in the human solar system." The chamber fell silent. Then the silence was broken by sounds of disbelief from dozens of different species. The floating jellyfish creature that served as the trade union representative made a bubbling noise that meant confusion. "Impossible," declared General Vraktor. The scarred Korthik military commander who had replaced War Chief Scare. "Our fleet was the finest in the galaxy. No primitive species could destroy it." Quindle activated a holographic display in the center of the chamber. The blue light showed images that made several aliens gasp in shock. "These recordings come from Captain Mardun's search squadron. This is what they found in the Jupiter system." The hologram showed a field of debris that stretched for thousands of kilometers. Twisted pieces of Korthak warships floated in the darkness, their proud hulls torn apart by weapons that left strange energy burns. Some ships were simply gone, with only scattered atoms to mark where they had been. "The debris field analysis shows weapon signatures unlike anything in our databases," Quindle continued. "The energy readings indicate power levels that should be impossible with known technology." Crystal Singer Velthara, the Zephyrian military analyst, studied the holographic data with growing alarm. Her crystal body dimmed as she processed the information. "These energy signatures show weapon outputs greater than our largest dreadnoughts. Some of these readings are higher than anything our most advanced species can produce." "You are mistaken," General Vraktor growled, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. "Humans have 12 small ships with primitive weapons. They could not have done this." "Then explain the evidence," Quindle challenged. She changed the holographic display to show recovered pieces of Korthik ships. "Look at these hull fragments. The metal has been melted and reformed by energy weapons operating at temperatures we thought were theoretical." A new voice joined the discussion. Mind Speaker Zethkal of the Trilaxians projected his thoughts directly into the minds of everyone present. His mental voice was filled with fear. "I have analyzed the psychic impressions left on the debris. The Korthak crew members experienced complete terror in their final moments. They were facing weapons and ships they could not understand." The chamber buzzed with worried conversations. Species that had laughed at humanity just months before were now looking at evidence that those same humans had destroyed one of the Federation's most powerful fleets. "There must be another explanation," insisted the trade union representative, her tentacles writhing with nervousness. "Perhaps the Korthak encountered a previously unknown hostile species." "We thought of that," replied Captain Mardun, who had been quietly listening from the observer section. The Etherian captain floated forward to address the council. "My search team found something else in the debris field." The holographic display changed again, this time showing a piece of metal with human writing on it. The words were burned into the hull fragment in several Federation languages. "Earth remembers your laughter." The chamber erupted in chaos. Aliens were shouting, chittering, and making sounds of panic in dozens of different languages. The idea that humans had deliberately destroyed the Korthak fleet was too frightening for many to accept. Director Helen Park watched the council meeting from a hidden observation post that the Federation did not know existed. Captain Julia Martinez stood beside her, having just returned from another intelligence mission aboard the stealth ship USS Phantom. "They are starting to understand," Helen said with satisfaction. "Look at their faces. The fear is beginning to set in." Julia smiled grimly. "Our stealth ships have been monitoring their communications for weeks. Every species in the Federation is now trying to find our real fleet. They are sending probe ships toward Earth, but none of them are coming back. Good, let them wonder. The more they search and fail to find us, the more afraid they will become." Back in the council chamber, Ambassador Quindle was trying to restore order. "We must face the truth," she said, her voice rising above the noise. Humanity has military capabilities that far exceed what they showed us. The question now is, what do we do about it? Vextar's crystal body was flashing rapidly with agitation. We must strike first. If the humans have weapons that can destroy our fleets, we cannot let them use those weapons against us. With what? Demanded General Vrektor. You saw what they did to 37 of our best ships. How many of your vessels are you willing to sacrifice to find out how many more surprises the humans are hiding? Crystal Singer Velthara had been quietly analyzing data while the others argued. Now she spoke, and her words sent a chill through the chamber. I have been calculating the energy requirements for the weapons that destroyed the Korthak fleet. If humans can build weapons like these, they must have industrial capabilities far beyond what we estimated. What do you mean? Asked Mindspeaker. Zethkal. I mean that everything we think we know about human technology is wrong. The ships they showed us, their mining operations, their research stations, all of it could be fake. They could have been hiding their real capabilities for decades. The trade union representative's tentacles went pale. If that is true, then how many ships do they really have? How many weapons? How advanced is their technology? We do not know, Quindle admitted. And that is what makes them so dangerous. Captain Morden shared his own disturbing discovery. My search team found something else. The debris field contains traces of materials that do not exist in our periodic tables. The humans are using elements we have never seen before. Impossible. Several voices said at once, but the word was losing its meaning. Everything about the humans was turning out to be impossible. General Vrektor paced back and forth, his claws clicking on the floor. We need to know what we are facing. I suggest we send a large reconnaissance fleet to the human system. 100 ships with orders to observe and report back. And if those 100 ships disappear like all the others? Asked Vextar. Then we will know we are dealing with a threat that could destroy the entire Federation. Mindspeaker Zethkal projected a thought that made everyone in the chamber shiver with fear. What if they are not content to simply defend themselves? What if they decide that the galaxy would be better under human control? The chamber fell. Silent again. The same species that had mocked Earth's weakness were now terrified of human strength. They had laughed at humanity's 12 ships, but now they realized those 12 ships had been a lie. The question that haunted every delegate was simple. If humans could hide a fleet powerful enough to destroy the Korthak, what else were they hiding? As the emergency session continued late into the station's night cycle, one thing became clear to every member of the Galactic Federation. They had made a terrible mistake when they rejected and humiliated Earth. Now they would have to live with the consequences of that mistake. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, the real human fleet waited patiently for orders that would determine the fate of the galaxy. The Galactic Council Chamber had never been so quiet. Every seat was filled, but no one was making a sound. The aliens who had once laughed at Earth now sat in tense silence, waiting for something they both wanted and feared to see. 3 months had passed since the Korthak fleet disappeared. 3 months of missing probe ships, failed intelligence missions, and sleepless nights for every military commander in the Federation. Now the humans were coming back to Kepler Prime, and this time they had not asked for permission. Ambassador. Quindle floated near the main viewing window, watching space through the transparent metal. I can see them, she announced, her musical voice tight with worry. Ships approaching the station. Vextar's crystal body was flashing nervous colors. How many ships? I count 20 visible vessels, but my sensors indicate there are many. More beyond our scanning range. The energy signatures are enormous. Through the window, the assembled aliens could see human warships unlike anything they had ever imagined. The vessels were massive, their dark hulls covered with weapons and armor that seemed to absorb light itself. The lead ship was larger than some space stations, and it moved through space with deadly grace. General Vrechter studied the approaching fleet with the eyes of an experienced warrior. Those are not the same ships we saw before. These vessels are built for war, and they are built to win. The chamber's communication system crackled to life. A human voice, calm and confident, filled the room. Kepler Prime Station, this is Admiral Jake Morrison of the Terran Defense Union, commanding the flagship USS Constitution. We are requesting immediate docking privileges and a full assembly of the Galactic Council. Requesting? Whispered the trade union representative. They do not sound like they are requesting anything. Mind speaker Zefkal projected his thoughts to the council. I can sense their intentions. They are not here to ask for membership. They are here to give us terms. Quindle activated the station's communication system with trembling hands. Admiral Morrison, you are cleared to dock. The council will meet you in 1 hour. Thank you, Ambassador. We appreciate your cooperation. The word cooperation sent chills through the chamber. It sounded less like gratitude and more like a warning. 1 hour later, Admiral Jake Morrison walked into the council chamber, but he was not the same man who had stood there months before asking for membership. His uniform was different, his bearing was different, and most importantly, he was not alone. Behind him walked Admiral Lisa Hayes, now wearing the insignia of Naval Intelligence. Director Helen Park followed, her gray hair and sharp eyes taking in every detail of the chamber. Finally came President Danny Walsh himself, the leader of Earth, walking calmly into a room full of aliens, who had once dismissed his species as primitive farmers. But it was not just the humans who were different. The chamber itself had changed. Where once there had been hundreds of alien delegates making noise and showing disrespect, now there was only silence and fearful attention. Admiral Morrison stood in the center of the chamber and looked around at the faces that had once laughed at him. Honored members of the former Galactic Federation, he began, and several aliens flinched at the word former. We have returned to discuss the future of this galaxy. But first, let me introduce someone who was not here last time. This is President Danny Walsh, the elected leader of Earth and all human colonies. President Walsh stepped forward. He was not a tall man, but somehow he seemed to fill the chamber with his presence. Representatives of the galaxy, I come before you today to announce the formation of the Terran Defense Union and to offer you a choice. The chamber remained silent. No one was laughing now. For 50 years, President Walsh continued, humanity has watched this galaxy from a distance. We have seen how your Federation operates, how it treats new species, and how it maintains peace. Through strength, we have learned much from your example. Director Helen Park activated a holographic display that showed star charts covering the entire galaxy. Red dots marked human positions, and there were far more red dots than anyone had expected. The Terran Defense Union currently operates over 3,000 combat vessels, Helen announced. These ships are positioned throughout Federation space, and they have been there for years without your knowledge. Vextar's crystal body went completely dark with shock. Impossible. Our sensors would have detected such a large fleet. Your sensors detect what we allow them to detect, Admiral Hayes replied. Captain Rick Barnes and his stealth destroyer USS Shadow have been monitoring this very station for the past 2 years. Every conversation, every military plan, every secret meeting has been recorded and analyzed. General Vrechter stood up slowly, his scarred face showing defeat. What do you want from us? President Walsh smiled, but it was not a cruel smile. We want what we have always wanted: peace, cooperation, and mutual respect. But we have learned that these things can only exist when all parties understand the consequences of betrayal. The holographic display changed to show human industrial capabilities. Shipyards that stretched across entire asteroid belts, manufacturing facilities that could build 100 warships per month, and research stations developing weapons that made the destruction of the Korthak fleet look like a small demonstration. The old Federation is finished, President Walsh declared. It was based on the idea that might makes right, that only the strong deserve a voice. We propose something different, a new alliance where every species is protected and every voice is heard. And if we refuse? Asked Mindspeaker Zethkal. Admiral Morrison answered that question. Then you will be defending yourselves against threats we will no longer help you face. The universe is a dangerous place, and there are hostile forces beyond your borders that we have been quietly keeping at bay. What hostile forces? Demanded Quindle. The Devourers from the Galactic Rim. The Machine Intelligence from the Core. Systems. The Void Hunters from Dark Space. We have been fighting them for decades while you focused on internal politics and territorial disputes. Director Helen Park brought up new images showing massive battles in distant star systems. Human. Fleets fighting against enemies that looked like nightmares made real. Every ship you lose to internal conflicts is one less defender against these real threats. President Walsh raised his hand for attention. We offer you a simple choice. Join the new Terran Defense Union as equal partners with guaranteed protection and shared technology, or remain independent and face the galaxy's dangers alone. What are your terms? Asked General Vrektor. Equal representation for all species, regardless of military strength. Shared defense responsibilities. Open technology exchange. And most importantly, no species gets to decide if another species is worthy of protection. The chamber buzzed with quiet conversations as the alien delegates discussed this unexpected offer. They had expected conquest or revenge, but instead the humans were offering partnership. Vextar's body began to glow with cautious hope. You could simply take control of the galaxy by force. Your weapons are clearly superior to ours. Why offer us a choice? President Walsh looked around the chamber at the faces that had once mocked his species. Because we learned something important. From your rejection of Earth, fear and domination create enemies. Respect and cooperation create allies. We need allies, not subjects. Admiral Morrison stepped forward for the final statement. The vote is simple. Join the Terran Defense Union and help us protect this galaxy together, or reject our offer and face the future alone. You have 24 hours to decide. As the human delegation prepared to leave, President Walsh turned back to address the chamber one last time. Oh, and representatives? The next time you meet a species asking to join your alliance, you might want to listen more carefully before you laugh. You never know what surprises they might be hiding. The chamber doors closed behind the humans, leaving the aliens to contemplate their choice. The species that had once dismissed Earth as primitive farmers now faced the reality that humanity had become the most powerful force in the galaxy. But more importantly, they had learned that true strength was not about having the biggest weapons or the largest fleet. True strength was about knowing when to use that power and when to offer a hand in friendship instead. The vote was unanimous. The Galactic Federation was dead, but the Terran Defense Union was born, with humanity as its protector and every species as its valued member. And somewhere in the depths of space, the real threats to galactic civilization continued their advance, unaware that humanity was now standing guard.
The red light flashed across the command center deep underground in Seoul. Admiral Hana stared at the massive screen showing the incoming message from space. Her hands were steady, but her heart was racing. After 50 years of preparing for this moment, it had finally come. The alien face on the screen was terrifying. Admiral Kethvar of the Axiom race looked like a walking crystal with glowing blue eyes. His voice was cold and sharp like broken glass when he spoke. "Humans of Earth," the alien said. "You have been found guilty by the Viridian Alliance. Your species spreads too fast. You fight too much. You are dangerous to the peace of the galaxy." Captain Wu stood beside Hana, his face getting red with anger. Commander Nari was taking notes, her pen moving quickly across the paper. Both officers knew this day would come, but hearing it still felt like a punch to the stomach. "We give you 72 hours," Kethvar continued. Surrender your weapons. Surrender your ships. Surrender your freedom. If you do not, we will destroy every human in the galaxy. Every man, woman, and child will die. This is not a threat. This is a promise. The screen went black. The command center was silent except for the quiet hum of computers. 50 people worked at their stations, but nobody made a sound. They all looked at Admiral Hana, waiting for her to speak. Hana was quiet for a long moment. She thought about her daughter who lived in Busan. She thought about her parents who had died fighting in the Mars colonies. She thought about the billions of humans living on Earth and on planets across the galaxy. Captain Wu, she said finally.
What do we know about their fleet?
Wu pulled up the data on his tablet. 50,000 ships, Admiral. The biggest fleet in galactic history. They have weapons that can crack planets in half. Their shields can stop anything we have ever built. Commander Nari, Hana said. What about diplomacy? Nari shook her head. They are not interested in talking, Admiral. Our spies say the decision was made months ago. The Alliance wants humans gone forever. Hana walked to the center of the room. Everyone stopped working and looked at her. She was not a tall woman, but she commanded respect. Her black hair was turning gray from years of stress. Her eyes were hard like steel. 50 years ago, she said, my grandfather told me something. He said that humans are different from other species. We do not give up. We do not surrender. When someone tries to destroy us, we fight back harder than they ever expected. She walked to her command chair and pressed a red button that had been waiting for this moment for decades. Alarms started ringing throughout the building. Deep underground, machines that had been sleeping for years began to wake up. Send the message, Hana ordered. Protocol Crimson Dawn is now active. Captain Wu's fingers flew over his keyboard. Coded messages shot out from Earth to every corner of the solar system, to Titan Station hiding behind Saturn, to the asteroid belt where secret shipyards had been working for decades, to the gas giant Jupiter where entire fleets waited in the clouds. Admiral, said Lieutenant Dal from his communications station, all stations are responding. The Ghost Fleet is waking up. Hana smiled for the first time in hours. The aliens thought they knew everything about humanity. They had been watching Earth for years, counting human ships, studying human weapons. They thought humans were weak and primitive. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Commander Nari pulled up star charts on her screen. The alien fleet will reach Earth in 6 days, she said. Should we evacuate the cities? No, Hana said. We stay and fight. Send a message to all human colonies. Tell them what is happening. Tell them to prepare. Captain Wu looked confused. Admiral, with respect, we cannot win this fight. They have 50,000 ships. We have maybe 500 that they can see. Hana's smile grew wider. Captain, they can see 500 of our ships, but they cannot see the other 200,000. The room fell silent again. Even the officers who knew about the secret projects felt their hearts skip a beat. 200,000 ships. It seemed impossible. For 50 years, Hana explained, we have been building ships in secret, inside asteroids, inside the atmospheres of gas planets, in dimensions the aliens cannot detect. We learned from every alien ship that crashed on our worlds. We studied their technology and made it better. She pressed another button on her chair. The main screen showed images from across the solar system. Ships that looked like nothing the aliens had ever seen were powering up their engines. They were sleek and deadly, painted black like the space around them. These are not normal human ships, Hana continued. These ships can phase through dimensions. They can create gravity wells. They can absorb energy weapons and turn that energy into more power for their own guns. Lieutenant Tay at the weapons station was staring at his screen in amazement. Admiral, the power readings from these ships are incredible. Each one is stronger than an entire alien battle group. The aliens think they are hunting sheep, Hana said. They do not know they are walking into a trap set by wolves. Commander Mina entered the command center carrying a thick folder of papers. She was the head of the secret shipyard projects, and she looked tired but excited. Admiral, she reported, all Baekdu-class dreadnoughts are ready for battle. The Hanbok-class fighters are loaded and waiting. The crews have been training for this day their entire lives. Hana nodded. How long until all ships are in position? 18 hours, Admiral. The aliens will never see them coming. The command center was now buzzing with activity. Officers were talking quickly into headsets. Screens showed data streaming in from across the solar system. The secret human fleet was moving into attack positions. Captain Wu was reading reports from the outer system. Admiral, Our scouts report the alien fleet is moving slower than expected. They are being careful, checking for traps. Smart, Hana said, but not smart enough. She stood up from her chair and walked to the window that looked out over Seoul. The city was quiet, but she could see people in the streets looking up at the sky. They knew something was happening. In 3 days, she said to her officers, the aliens will arrive expecting to find scared humans begging for mercy. Instead, they will find the most dangerous predators in the galaxy waiting for them. The red alert lights were still flashing. The countdown had begun. In 72 hours, the galaxy would change forever. The Viridian fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. 50,000 alien warships spread out in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming like jewels in the starlight. Each ship was the size of a small city, armed with weapons that could destroy planets. General Voxtar of the Helix race stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Death's Promise. He was 12 feet tall with 4 arms and skin like metal armor. His yellow eyes scanned the displays showing human ships in the distance. Only 400 ships? He laughed, his voice like grinding gears. The humans are even weaker than we thought. Admiral Kethvar appeared on his communication screen. General, do not underestimate them. Humans are tricky creatures. Tricky? Voxtar waved one of his 4 hands dismissively. Look at their ships. They are tiny. They have no heavy weapons. This will be over in an hour. Deep inside Titan Station, Captain Inho was watching the alien fleet on his screens. The station looked like a regular mining facility from the outside, but inside it was the control center for humanity's greatest secret. For 30 years, Inho had been waiting for this moment. All Ghost Fleet commanders, he spoke into his headset. This is Titan Control. Begin Phase 1 activation. Across the solar system, impossible things began to happen. Inside the great red spot of Jupiter, massive shapes started to move. What looked like space debris near the asteroid belt began to unfold into warships. Empty space itself seemed to crack open as ships phased in from other dimensions. Commander Mina was aboard the dreadnought Bekdu's Fury, hidden inside a hollow asteroid. She had spent 20 years designing this ship with her team of engineers. It was 5 miles long and armed with weapons that could tear holes in space itself. All crew members, she announced over the ship's speakers, prepare for dimensional shift. We are going hunting. The asteroid around her ship dissolved like smoke. The Bekdu's Fury emerged, its black hull absorbing light like a hungry shadow. Along its sides, weapons that looked like silver dragons were powering up. Lieutenant Tay sat in the cockpit of his Hanbok-class fighter, one of 50,000 single-pilot ships that had been waiting for this day. His fighter was small, but it could manipulate gravity itself. He could make his enemies heavy enough to crush themselves or light enough to float helplessly in space. Ghostwing Alpha, he said into his radio. All fighters ready for launch. Copy that. Ghostwing Alpha, came the reply from Captain Dal aboard the command ship Soul's Pride. Show them what human pilots can do. The alien fleet had detected the small human ships and was moving to attack. General Voxtar was confident this would be easy. His ships had shields that could stop any weapon. His guns could melt through any armor. All ships, he commanded. Advance and destroy the humans. Leave no survivors. But as the alien fleet moved forward, their sensors began picking up strange readings. More ships were appearing out of nowhere. At first it was dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. General, his sensor officer reported, I am detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system. It appears we missed something in our intelligence reports. Voxtar looked at his screens in confusion. Where there had been empty space moments before, human ships were materializing everywhere. They were unlike anything in the galactic databases. These ships seemed to bend light around themselves. They moved in ways that should have been impossible. Captain Inho smiled as he watched the alien confusion from Titan Station. Phase 2, he ordered. Full fleet reveal. The solar system filled with human warships. They emerged from inside gas giant atmospheres, unfolded from asteroid belts and stepped sideways from hidden dimensions. In 10 minutes, the human fleet grew from 400 ships to over 200,000. Commander Mina's dreadnought was leading a group of similar massive ships. Each one was armed with dimension-ripping cannons and protected by shields that existed in multiple realities at the same time. She had named them after Korean mountains because they were as immovable and dangerous as the peaks of her homeland. All Bekdu-class ships, she commanded, target the enemy flagship. Let them see what human engineering can do. The Bekdu's Fury fired its main weapon, A beam of twisted space-time shot across millions of miles and struck General Voxtar's ship. The alien shields that had never failed before simply disappeared, dissolved by weapons that attacked reality itself. Lieutenant Tay and his fighter squadron were already among the alien ships. His small craft danced between the massive enemy vessels like deadly butterflies. When alien weapons tried to target him, he would increase his ship's gravity field and fall faster than their guns could track. "This is Ghostwing Alpha," he reported. "Enemy weapons are useless against gravity fighters." Beginning attack runs, his fighter squadron swarmed over the alien ships like angry bees. They would land on the enemy hulls, plant gravity mines that would crush the ships from the inside, then fly away before the aliens knew what hit them. General Voxtar's bridge was in chaos. His ships were being destroyed by weapons they had never seen before. His sensors could not track the human fighters. His shields were being eaten away by strange energy beams. "All ships retreat," he ordered.
Fall back to defensive positions.
But as the alien fleet tried to retreat, they discovered that human ships had surrounded the entire solar system. There was no escape. Captain Dal aboard Soul's Pride had been feeding false information to the aliens for weeks through hidden spy networks. Every piece of intelligence they had about human capabilities was wrong. Every tactical plan they had made was useless. "Admiral Hana," he reported to Earth Command, "the aliens are trying to run. Should we let them go?" From her underground bunker, Admiral Hana's voice was cold and hard. "No survivors leave the system, Captain. They came here to commit genocide. They need to learn that attacking humanity has consequences." The human fleet moved like a perfectly coordinated machine. Ships that could phase through dimensions appeared inside alien formations. Gravity-based weapons crushed enemy vessels like tin cans. Energy-absorbing armor turned alien laser blasts into power for human guns. Commander Mina watched as her dreadnought's weapons tore through an entire alien battle group. The enemy ships were strong, but they were built to fight conventional warfare. They had no defense against weapons that attacked the basic forces of physics. "Target their command ships," she ordered. "Cut off their communications. Make them fight alone and afraid." General Voxtar realized that his mighty fleet was being destroyed by an enemy they had completely misunderstood. These humans were not the primitive savages from intelligence reports. They were apex predators who had been pretending to be prey. "Send an emergency message to the Alliance," he commanded his communications officer. "Tell them we need immediate reinforcements. Tell them everything we knew about humans was wrong." But even as he gave the order, Voxtar knew it was too late. His ship was surrounded by human fighters that moved like ghosts and struck like lightning. His shields were failing. His weapons were useless. The last thing he saw before his ship exploded was a human fighter pilot through his view screen. Lieutenant Tay gave him a small salute before his gravity mine turned the Death's Promise into a cloud of twisted metal. In 6 hours, the mighty Viridian fleet was reduced to burning wreckage floating in space. Not a single human ship was destroyed. The solar system belonged to Earth, and the galaxy was about to learn that humanity was no longer hiding. Admiral Bora stood on the bridge of the Teguk, humanity's largest warship. The ship was 10 miles long and armed with weapons that could create artificial black holes. Around her, the solar system was filled with the wreckage of the Viridian fleet, but the battle was far from over. "Admiral," reported her tactical officer, "we are receiving emergency transmissions from the aliens. They are calling for help from their home systems." Bora smiled coldly. She had been planning this moment for 20 years. The destruction of the Viridian invasion fleet was just the beginning. Now humanity would show the galaxy what true warfare looked like. "Let them call," she said. "We want their reinforcements to come. The more aliens we destroy here, the fewer we have to hunt down later." Commander Jun was leading a squadron of Arirang-class destroyers toward the surviving alien ships. His vessels were smaller than the enemy warships, but they were armed with quantum disruptors that could unravel matter at the molecular level. "All Arirang ships," he commanded, "target the alien command vessels. Show them what happens when you threaten human children." The human destroyers opened fire with weapons that made reality itself unstable. The alien ships' energy shields, which had protected them in countless battles, simply fell apart when hit by the quantum beams. The proud warships of the Viridian Alliance dissolved like sugar in rain. Captain Yuna was piloting the experimental ship Hwarang, a vessel that defied everything the aliens thought they knew about physics. Her ship could split into 12 separate units, each controlled by advanced artificial intelligence systems named after Korean historical heroes. Admiral Yi, take point, she commanded her ship's AI. General Yulji, flank left. King Sejong, prepare the trap. The Hwarang broke apart like a flower opening its petals, 12 deadly ships where there had been one, each moving with perfect coordination. The aliens fired desperately at what they thought was a single target, only to discover they were fighting an entire fleet. The remaining Viridian ships were trapped in the middle of the solar system with nowhere to run. Their faster-than-light engines had been disabled by human gravity weapons. Their communication systems were being jammed by technology that existed in multiple dimensions at once. General Kyung appeared on Admiral Bora's communication screen from his ship Bulguksa. He was the oldest human commander in the fleet, a veteran of the secret wars that had been fought in the shadows for decades. Admiral, he reported, our intelligence was correct. The aliens have no defense against dimensional warfare. Their technology is advanced, but it is limited to normal spacetime. Bora nodded. For 50 years, humanity had been reverse engineering crashed alien technology, but instead of simply copying what they found, human engineers had improved it. They had made it better, faster, deadlier. How many alien ships are still functional? She asked. Less than 5,000, Kyung replied, and they are scattered across the system. Most of them are trying to hide behind planets or moons. Then it is time for the demonstration, Bora decided. Show the galaxy what human mercy looks like. She opened a communication channel to all alien ships in the system. Her image appeared on their screens. A small Korean woman with graying hair and eyes like steel. Attention, Viridian forces, she said calmly. You came here to commit genocide against my species. You plan to kill every human man, woman, and child in the galaxy. This was your choice. On the alien ships, terrified crews listened to the human admiral's words. They had never seen warfare like this. Their weapons were useless. Their shields were gone. Their mighty fleet was scattered wreckage. However, Bora continued, humans are not monsters. We do not kill for pleasure. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to galactic law. Continue fighting, and you will be destroyed with weapons you cannot understand. Some alien ships immediately powered down their weapons and sent surrender signals, but others, driven by pride or desperation, continued to fight. Commander Jun's squadron encountered a group of stubborn alien cruisers hiding behind Mars. The enemy ships opened fire with everything they had, filling space with deadly energy beams. All Arirang ships, Jun commanded, demonstrate void steel armor. The human destroyers flew directly into the alien weapon fire. The energy beams struck their hulls and simply disappeared, absorbed by armor that turned enemy attacks into fuel for their own systems. The aliens watched in horror as their most powerful weapons made the human ships stronger. Return fire, Jun ordered. Quantum disruptors, minimum power. We want prisoners.